Okay. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the 26th of hopefully many episodes of Bard Advice, a TTRPG slash D&D slash life in general advice podcast, wherein I, Yazik, Charles, Chaz, the DM, the Bard, however you may know me, do my best to answer those questions. Took me a moment to remember all of my names. I have too many. I have a name problem. It's well known. I hope everybody's doing well. Welcome to Friday. Good job in making it to the end of the week. Hello, Bean, Avram, Rocco, Cat Jazz, Flint, Nebraska, and everyone and anyone else that I didn't mention. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. So, let's talk about a couple of things at the front of the show. Like we normally do, we like to remind everyone to please send all of your emails, questions, concerns, complaints, criticisms to bardadvice@gmail.com. That's how we keep this show going, is with these questions and content. So please forward all of that to bardadvice@gmail.com. It also looks like bardadvice. If you want to get some merch, you can do so at manshorts.com. We've got shorts and shirts and new stuff in the works. So head over to manshorts.com, check that out. And if you want to contribute to anything that I'm doing musically, i.e. the album that is currently in development, you can do so directly through PayPal, Cash App, or Venmo at Yazzik, Yahzik. I would like to extend a thanks to all of our patrons, our members, who are members of the channel. If you've considered getting membership on the channel, that gets you access to these cool stickers and a cool color for your name, so you might consider that. It's also a great way to contribute in helping us continue making content. Big thanks also to the super chatters. Whether it's $1 or $100, it's appreciated and makes a difference. And a reminder to please like, comment, rate, and share. So likes on this video are very helpful. If you're in here, just give it a like. It's good for the algorithm. I appreciate the live chat always. And please share this podcast with your friends. If you know somebody that's looking for a D&D podcast, here's one. And rate it on your respective platforms, please. So Apple Podcasts, Google, whatever you're listening on. If you've got an option to rate it, please rate it. And tell your friends. Okay, so that's a lot of the plug stuff, I think, out of the way. Let's get in. Oh, one last thing. One last note I have. Last week, there was a moment in the podcast. I felt really bad after I watched the pod. There was a moment in the podcast last week where there was someone, and I'm not sure if they're in the chat tonight, but it was Jackal was the name, mentioned that it was their birthday. And I didn't even say happy birthday. I just kept talking about whatever I was talking about. I was like, oh yeah, cool, info. Oh, it was about blood. It was about donating blood. And that's what Jackal wanted for their birthday. So happy birthday, Jackal. Sorry for totally just blowing past that like it wasn't a thing, especially considering that it was just my birthday and everybody was so nice to me and giving me happy birthdays. So happy belated. And yeah, and give blood if you can. It's good. People need it. Okay. So for Art Corner this week, just wanted to speak about Our Planet 2 briefly, because it is outrageous. It is just so astonishing. Just the little bits of I've seen, I've not even seen it all, but I would highly recommend, if anyone has Netflix and you've considered watching it, watch it. It's amazing. The kind of stuff that we're able to capture with the types of cameras we have, it's like you're there. I was watching footage of an albatross in the ocean, and it's like, how am I just seeing this? It's really intense. But if you like animals, any druids in the house, I highly recommend Our Planet 2. And while we're in our corner, or art corner rather, not our corner. Well, it is our corner. It's our art corner. This image background for this week, I made all of this stuff with a combination of different AI tools, but I think it's a pretty cool image that's been produced. And just a quick note while we're on this page, The Nuggets are our 2023 NBA champions, and they won in 5. So, not to toot my own horn, but I had a feeling that was going to happen. Nikola Jokic is a different basketball player, and all the other guys are really good too. So I don't see anybody in the West stopping him next year. So that's all of the other stuff, the non-D&D stuff, I guess. Some D&D, some non-D&D. So this evening I only have 5 questions. But I also have a follow-up. To be fair, one of them is kind of a combo follow-up question, but one of them's a follow-up, and a couple of them are pretty extensive and long. So we'll see where we are. I'm considering a new segment called Chat Chat, where we just kind of chill and I just talk to chat. I kind of do that anyway throughout, but there was just maybe like a designated time where it's just like, all right, we're just going to do questions from chat. So we're not doing that at the moment, but we'll see if we've got some time towards the end to do it and maybe make it a segment moving forward where it's just kind of a portion of the pod where we interact with chat. And yes, as Flint said, please don't forget to hit the like button. Thank you. So let's begin. We have our first question this week, and it is from someone who designated themselves only as Noob Rogue. So let's dive right in. Help, Bard. Love your videos. Been a fan for a few years now, and I'm finally playing my first campaign next week. I decided to run a Tabaxi Rogue, original, I know. To prep for the game, I've been reading up on mechanics, and I'm not sure I not sure I fully grasp stealth and hiding. Can I hide during combat? I realize this may sound like a silly question. Thank you. Thank you for the question, Noob Rogue. There are no silly questions, only silly people. I don't think that it's that silly of a question, even if such existed. I am not entirely confident in how the mechanics of stealth work in 5e, but I will do my best, and maybe chat can help guide in answering the specific questions. But as to how it works, it's kind of a vague question. Can you hide during combat? Well, we know that if the person that you're going to be engaging in combat with hasn't seen you yet, you can. But assuming you're already, let's just assume that you're already in combat actively. Can you hide from there? Technically, but it's going to be incredibly difficult to do so. Now, I know that rogues get mad bonuses for hide, maybe even more so in 5e than 3.5. When it comes to the actual action of hide, not like with sneak attack, but like in hiding, right? Because is it at level 14 that they get vanish, which allows them to use it as a bonus action or to do it as a bonus action? Number one, what is the terrain like? You can't hide out in open spaces. Yeah, that's true. So that's number one. So assuming that we're in combat actively and you say, I want to hide, it can be done, but there's a lot to take into account, and it's going to put a lot on the DM in terms of perception checks and knowing where the enemy is focused. I doubt that you would be able to just like jump into the bushes and say, okay, now I'm hidden. But depending on how that's done, like let's say you spend a full round action running backwards and you're now around the corner where they can't really see you. On your next turn, from there, assuming that no one positions themselves in a place where they can see you, you could attempt to hide. But I would imagine that you would have some disadvantage to it, or likely I would more likely give the enemy advantage on perception to find you. Because at a minimum, they saw you go back around the corner. So they have kind of an idea of where you are. But once they lose sight of you, then it's a different ball game. Let me see what some of the chat is saying. Catcha says yes, you can if there's something you can or someone you can use for cover. Yes. If stealth versus passes, it's stealth versus passive perception, or perception if they use an action. Once you attempt an attack, you cease to be stealthing. Yes. Level 2 cunning action to hide as a bonus. Oh, really? Huh. Shows how little I know about rogues in hiding. Yes, you're not missing much, Avram. Talking about rogues hiding. We had a question about hiding in combat, or stealth in combat in general. So, yeah, the short answer is, if the enemy has already seen you, any real attempts to hide at that point, I would imagine, would either be done with disadvantage or done in such a way that their perception was given advantage. So the odds are against you. But if there are dead bodies and you're a halfling rogue, you might be able to get away and hide. Yeah, hide within the bodies. You could technically hide anywhere, but it would likely serve you to put yourself into a position where you're hidden in such a way that you can get back to them and surprise them. But I don't know. Now, it's possible that you're not talking about if you're indirectly in combat, and it could just be that you're approaching combat. And if that's the case, if the enemy hasn't already seen you, you can definitely hide, and you can definitely use stealth. And if you're the rogue, I encourage it, because if you're hidden, then you're going to get sneak attack. You're going to get advantage. So, and you can hide behind people too, technically. So a cool example of that would be, back in the day, I ran a bard, and a buddy of mine ran a Gitsurai monk. And I think I've talked about this before. And he was just this giant DPS character, and I was the support. I think I was a gnome. Pretty sure I was a gnome. Yeah, because that was Denzak. Anyway, we were like a buddy team duo, and we'd rigged like a backpack platform, essentially, for me to stand on. So when we were approaching enemies, nobody really knew that I was there unless they looked or unless they already knew us. So that's a cool way to hide in plain sight, especially if you're a tabaxi. Are tabaxis medium size? But if you've got somebody in your party that's large, you could probably hide behind them. You could fashion a way to do that. But the short answer is yes, you can hide in combat. The difficulty of doing that is going to vary based on any number of things, notably, as Jay mentioned, the terrain, but also the status of whether or not they've seen you. And a lot of that stuff is going to be determined probably in the moment by the DM as to what they would allow or how they want to do it. Hello, Carolyn. Glad that you made it. I'm excited that you're here as well. Glad you made it. Bean says Skulker Feet allows you to maintain stealth when making a ranged attack if you miss. Whoa, really? That's dope. That's a really cool feat. Maintain if you miss. How does that even work? What, they don't know where it came from because it didn't hit? I don't know. I don't understand the mechanics behind that completely, but either way. Yes, welcome, Carol. I'm glad you're here. Yeah, yes, you can be stealthy in combat, and I would recommend it, although the best way to accomplish that is to do all of those things prior to engaging in the combat if you can help it. So hiding behind your buddy as you approach so they don't even see you, going up into the woods and kind of breaking line from the rest of the party, coming in from a different route, so that gives you the hiding advantage. You want to make all of those decisions, I think, before, if you can help it. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes combat gets sprung on you, in which case, yeah, maybe you'll have to make a dive for the bushes, and then the roles will proceed from there as to you trying to hide and them trying to find you, etc. So, get someone to cast Pass Without a Trace. Yeah, dude. And you know who casts Pass Without a Trace? Rangers. I really like Rangers. I don't know why I got so intensive when I said that. I don't know. I just wanted to like hammer that in there. Ooh, maybe that can be one of my answers for the next question. But yes, that's where we're at, Noob Rogue. Go forth, roll dice, have fun, and hide to your rogue heart's content. Enjoy. So the next question that we've got is from, according to my note, my list of names. Oh, it's from Chris. I feel like if I'm ever wondering who the question is from, there's like a 17 or 18% chance that it's Chris, which is pretty high. It's actually probably higher than that. Anyway, this is from Chris. Chris asks, like pineapple on pizza, GIF versus GIF, and soda versus pop, what weird hill are you willing to die on? So I wasn't totally sure how to answer this question, because a lot of times I find myself on whatever the third option is in these kind of debates. For example, I don't eat pizza. So the whole debate about like whether or not pineapple belongs on it is really irrelevant to me. That said, I mostly call it pop. I very rarely call it soda. And when I was a kid and we lived in Oklahoma, we called it pop. And then I briefly lived up in Michigan and kind of started calling it pop again. And I'd say like more than half the time, if I'm talking about it, I call it pop. But in regard to weird hills that I'm willing to die on, obviously 3.5 being better than 5e, I would gladly set up a flag and die on that hill. Miles Jack wasn't down, which is not really like a this versus this camp sort of thing. It's just I thought it was relevant for the weird hills to die on category. I also wrote down that the Beatles are overrated and baseball is boring. I think I'd be satisfied with dying on any of those hills. And also AI. So when it comes to where we are currently with AI tools and where we're going, these next 18 months-ish are going to be the AI tool arms race. And it's already happening where, you know, every 18 hours, there's some company has released a new plugin or some new, you know, I saw that last week OpenAI is essentially doing what Apple did with the App Store with their stuff with GPT in terms of plugins. So they're kind of letting it be open source and allowing people to use it as a marketplace. That's going to be crazy because it's just going to get full of all these plugins that are going to give us more tools to do more cool stuff. And the biggest target in its crosshairs at this moment is labor. And yeah, there's definitely an argument that that's bad for a lot of people. But also, it's good for a lot of people. And it's going to open up like whole new things that we never even knew existed. Not just with art, but just things in general. So I would die on the hill of AI ultimately being a good thing. Obviously, there are people who can be bad actors and do bad with it, but I think it's ultimately going to be a good thing. So those are my hills. That's where I'm at on that. Baseball is really boring. Even Gordon Ramsay's pizza restaurant has a pizza called the Don't Tell Gordon that has pineapple on it. Oh, this is I love that. It's also so D&D too that it becomes a conversation about the pizza. Bell peppers have ruined more pizzas than pineapple ever could. Flint says, one hill I will die on, though. Every class should automatically be proficient in perception or have it as a class skill in Pathfinder. That's a good point. Yeah, perception seems to be like a basic skill that everybody could have. or would have. We'll be talking about some of those things. Some of these themes I feel like are going to continue to come up throughout these different conversations, because I mentioned buddy cops earlier, and that's coming later. We'll talk more about that. But yeah. I was 6 or 7 years old when I found out the icebox was called a refrigerator. Oh yeah, the icebox. I say weird stuff all the time too. Like, I don't call it the movie theater. I call it the movie house. I call a lot of stuff just whatever it is and then house, actually. So, you know, the food house. It's more like writing reports. It's the principal. Oh, yeah, like Bob's Burgers. It is the principal. Principals are important, particularly in schools. All right, let's keep moving this train along. Thank you for the question, Chris. Anybody? By the way, what is it? It seems to be the consensus in here that pineapple on pizza is okay. Jay says ham and pineapple on pizza started strangely in Canada first. I don't know that that's that strange. Lots of weird food combos come from Canada. Yeah, isn't poutine Canadian? There's, I'm sure, a lot of things that are like that. How about syrup? That's a weird one, huh? Who cracked open a tree and was like, oh, I'm going to have some of this? I mean, I might do that. Somebody had to. I wonder what the origin of that was. Now I want to look up the origin of syrup. Alrighty. Let's keep it moving. Thank you for the question, Chris. This next question is from Victoria. And this is the one that is a pseudo follow-up question type deal. But Victoria asks, I played a character that has actions dictated by dice roll and verb list. It was fun, but my DM thought it sounded a bit cursed, so he only let me play it in the one-shot with a pre-gen rogue. I think it would work better for a pirate, so fingers crossed he lets me use the dynamic again. Aside from that, I just had surgery on a broken arm this morning, running out of YouTube videos to binge, and books are a little hard to focus on thanks to the pain meds. Any recommendations for entertainment that requires minimal movement and limbs? Okay, so first of all, I am happy to see that you at least got to play that character in a one-shot, and hopefully you and your DM can come to some sort of a term for how that can look in a full-on campaign. I'm sorry about your arm. That's terrible. That's got to be, that I would, oh man, let me tell you, if I didn't have one of my arms, that would be bad news bears, because that's like 90% of my life is just doing stuff with my arm on the computer. So I'm sorry to hear that and wish you the best in your mending. As for entertainment that requires minimal movement, you came to the right place. I know lots of that stuff. Now, it depends on exactly what options you have in terms of streaming and viewing, but also like what you're into. So I spoke with my wife about this earlier, about certain things that she likes, because the trouble is a lot of the stuff that I consume, especially on YouTube, is very just like, just like guy stuff, I guess. Like Dudesy is a podcast I listen to. Scissor Bros is a podcast I listen to. There are several of those things that I consume, stuff like the Game Grumps, although not as often anymore. But all of that said about what options you have, Our Planet 2 is a great watch. And Love Island, if you've got Hulu, let me just say, I don't know if you're a fan of reality television at all, but Love Island's great because they're like 100-episode seasons. And they're all like an hour. And it's just drama the whole way. I find that stuff super interesting. And in fact, I discovered recently that I missed an entire season of Love Island earlier this year. So I've got to catch up on that because the next season is already on. So maybe Love Island. Let's see. What else? What else? My wife said that there's a lot of cool free stuff on like Prime, like Freeverse or Freevee, I think is the name of it. There's a lot of free stuff on there. And then like, what else is on Netflix that's good? Siren is good. That show about the Korean women, the survival show. Ted Lasso on Apple TV is good. And by the way, if you've got Apple TV, not only is Ted Lasso really good, but Severance is great. And I'm hoping that comes back soon. I tried the Shrinking show. I don't know. I maybe have to give it another try before I can really judge it, but I wasn't too terribly keen on that one. My wife and I started watching Silo. That's okay. And as for other stuff on Netflix and Hulu, I don't know. Bob's Burgers is great. South Park's always hilarious. The Grand Tour on Amazon Prime Video. I've heard really good things about like what's that F1 series? Is that what that is? It's like a documentary style series about F1 drivers. If you have a Prime but not a lot else, there's a place called Freevee. If you're into sci-fi stuff, Freevee has a whole range of a whole series of Fringe. Peaky Blinders and Sherlock are great to binge, especially if you doze off. It's easy to get back and watch an episode again. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a good call. When it comes to, like, binging, let me tell you, Law and Order, bong bong, that's a great show to binge because, again, there's, like, 1,000 episodes. And Law and Order is another one of those where you can just kind of like come in and out because, you know, you don't have to know totally what's going on to be able to appreciate like a Law and Order, like a murder mystery type show. And what else did Peaky Blinders and Sherlock made me think of something else? Oh, like Doctor Who. That's another good one where there's just like a bunch of episodes. They're not necessarily linear, so you can kind of afford to doze in and out. Pirate says the Grand Tour is what became of the original Top Gear host, Jeremy Clarkson, Richard Hammond, and James May. Oh, that's right. That's right. Is an Ice-T on there. Ice-T is indeed on SVU. But there's also like Law and Order Criminal Intent. There's the original Law and Order. There's a bunch of those. Heist and drama stuff. There's also kind of fun. Freevee also has seasons of Leverage and the sequel series Leverage Redemption. Cool. Well, that's a lot. Hopefully any of that is good for you to consume. And then as for YouTube stuff, like I said, most of what I consume are like comedy podcasts. Occasionally I'll find myself watching other D&D stuff, but yeah, some of my favorite shows I can think of off the top of my head just to run off if maybe you've never seen them that are great are like The Sopranos, The Wire. What has a lot? Well, some shows that I love that I know have a lot of seasons are stuff like Frasier and Cheers and Married with Children. All three of those shows have 11 seasons, and so does Modern Family. Has 11. They all have 11 seasons, and so that's a bunch of stuff. Star Trek, there's a bunch of Star Trek. Oh, Star Trek Next Gen is a great stream binge, and another good one that's not that linear, so you can pop in and out. Salutations. Watch your skits all the time, and think you and everyone else are freaking great. So funny. Thank you, Joshua. Appreciate it. Can't decide which edition of D&D to play. My go-to edition is 3.5. That's the one I like. Some people might find it overcomplicated, particularly if you've started playing D&D with 5e. 3.5 is pretty busy. There's a lot going on, lots of content. But as a result, I think you can make cooler stuff. And 5e is really just like a streamlined 3.5 anyway. So, yeah. Breaking Bad's great. RuPaul's Drag Race is great. There's a bunch of those seasons. We're in like 15. I think we're in season 15 now. bunch of those. That's always great entertainment. Yeah. Hopefully you find something in there. And more importantly, I hope your arm gets better. That's terrible. I wouldn't wish that on an enemy. Arm is tough. Because it's just like, you must have to fight the urge to do stuff. But, yeah. Hopefully that gives you an array of things to choose from. And we'll wish you the best in your arm healing. So, thank you for the question and the follow-up, Victoria. Let's move on to what is one of my favorite questions. And I don't know if he's here for it. So maybe we won't do it. I don't know if River is in chat. And see, if River's not in chat, I'd really rather not do the question. Because it's his question, and it's a big question that he's been waiting on me to answer. So, we've not seen him this evening. So, maybe if he comes through later, we will do that question. But for now, let's move on to another one. So, shh, don't say anything, pirate. They can't know. But the good news is they'll forget, right? So, let's see. Let's go to Nebraska's question, because I think Nebraska because is in here. But Nebraska because has a question, and it's a long one. In fact, I think it might be the first question we've had that's broken into three panels, but that's okay. So it's a cool one, and I'm interested to hear what chat's suggestions and ideas are. So let's get into it. Nebraska because asks, I want to introduce a stray dog to the party. Not a magical dog or a dog that has relevance to the campaign. Just a plain old healthy, friendly St. Bernard that starts hanging around the party. The players are all dog lovers and have their own pups IRL, so I think they will enjoy the novelty. My question is, how the heck do I run it as an NPC? Will the dog have actions or provide bonuses? How do I stat block him? How or should he level in anything? Skill set? Backstory? Listed are a few examples of questions. On a rest period, can I use the normal doggy abilities to hear, see, and smell as an alert? How and what would I roll to decide if he barks or not, or attacks or not? Is there a way he could give bonuses to the party or players by being a friendly, relaxing companion when he asks for belly rubs, cuddles, and plays with them? Am I overthinking this? Should I just play him however I want? Chaz the Wise, thank you for your time. You did say flattery helps. Yes, indeed it does. Thank you for the flattery and for the question. So there's a lot to unpack there. And quite possibly the most questions I've ever been asked in one question. But let's go through it. So the short answer is, what I would say to you is, play it however you want. I think that you are slightly overthinking it. Because at the end of the day, the first thing you said is that that the dog doesn't have any relevance to the campaign. So it seems odd that you would be so caught up in the mechanics of how he operates if he's not really relevant to the campaign. But obviously you would want to know like how to go about it. So I thought about it, and what I would do is I would just stat block it out, and then I would yeah, that's a good question, because it would need a skill list. Yes. So it would need to be sort of a stat block player sheet hybrid kind of thing. But let's address the questions one by one. So, will the dog have actions or provide bonuses? Well, yeah, I would say so. In fact, what you could do is just use the skills as the actions, right? So obviously, the dogs can't do all of the skills. Well, maybe they can. Mastiff has stats in the PHB. Yeah, but it's probably a stat block. Let me see how many there. I mean, there's only like 10 skills in 5e anyway, right? So there's a lot of stuff that, I mean, I guess technically speaking, a dog could do any of these. They'd have a strength, they'd have a stat block, so therefore they would have some sort of a baseline for which to generate stats, yeah? I think that you would just do it the same way that you would with a character in terms of determining what that quote-unquote role would be. Provide bonuses. I don't see why not. I don't see why the dog wouldn't be able to provide bonuses. In fact, that's a thing that you might customize. And so maybe you set that up in such a way where, 10 belly rubs gets you a D6. And that's also a cool way to encourage RP with like a little doggo friend in the party. And it's just like, oh yeah, every time, and maybe that you can build relationships within the party. Like you can have the dog can have like a favorite or maybe like a somebody that they don't like that much. But as far as providing bonuses, I would do it like Bardic Inspiration. So I would just do that in such a way where you just kind of, because I think that's a real thing in terms of dogs. I just read a thing recently about dogs, and I don't know how true this is because I saw it on TikTok. So we got to take everything on there with a grain of salt. But if there's any truth to it, it's really cool. Evidently, the reason that dogs love us so much is that when they look at us, they get the same release of oxytocin that we get when we look at them. So like, oh man, that's so cool if that's true. So like essentially, when we look at a dog, most people, not everybody likes dogs, but most people, when they look at a dog, it's like, oh man, look at that cute guy. The dog is thinking the same thing when it looks at us. Which just like, oh man, that just makes me want a dog so much more. Because how cool is that? They're just like looking at us like, oh man, look at this guy. That's so cool. So yes, I think that there's a real bonus to that. I would do it as a Bardic Inspiration. How do you stat block him? I think you're going to have to kind of go custom on that if you really want to do the stats correctly as for making it work. So who's pet when you think of it? Yeah, for sure. So if you want to combine that skill set with the stat block, then you're really just kind of making your own thing. And from there, you would just kind of customize it if you really wanted to build it all the way out. Now, you could just do what you said at the beginning and just kind of play it how you want to. I think that would be the most fun. It'd be the easiest for you. And I really don't think that the party's going to care. But if you want to stat it all out, good night, McNeil. Thank you for joining. Hope you have a great evening. If you want to do it that way, then I would take the skills that you want to use from the skill list and then just use those as the actions. And then you can determine which of them would be what. But the ability to see, hear, and smell as an alert, like, yeah, for sure. So what I would do really is just find the stat sheet for a dog in the PHB and then combine that with just like a regular player character sheet. Yeah? gonna kind of have to, it's gonna have to be real like bespoke, but it can be done. I think you should just kind of like go for it and see how it goes. And is there a way he could give bonuses to the party? Yeah. And would you roll to decide if he barks or not, or attacks or not? Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could do that, I think, with percentile rolls. So you could definitely accomplish that with not even, you don't even have to do a full percentile if you didn't want to. You could just do like a D10, or you just like make your own rule up for it, right? So just like give yourself some options as to what the dog might do. And then if you want to just do it on a percentile or a D20 or a D10 or whatever it is, then you can just do that, and that can kind of help guide that can give it at least a little bit of a mechanic. Even if it's random, it gives it a little bit of mechanic that's easy. Yeah, that's what you might do, is just like put together a list of all the stuff the dog can do, and if it's 20 things, then it's just roll a D20 as to what the dog does. So if you leave for the weekend, that's 2 weeks to the dog. He's going to be freaking out. Oh, wow. Oh, no. Since dog ages in 7 years to R1, if you're gone for 10 hours at work, that's 70 hours to the dog. No wonder they're always happy to see you, because they might think you're gone forever. Oh, my gosh. That hadn't even occurred to me. It's just like, what's your problem? I've been gone for like 3 hours. And they're like, you've been gone for like 4 days. What are you talking about? Man, that's crazy. I didn't even think about that way, but good to know. So thank you for the question, Nebraska. I think that you are maybe slightly overthinking it a bit, but I think that ultimately it's going to be fun and a good idea. It would be funny if the dog gets really excited when the party's trying to hide, or if an arrow misses, he goes and chases it like he's playing catch. Yeah, that could be fun too. So if it's not necessarily relevant to the campaign or like a magical or special dog, you could still make that fun in combat, whether it's helpful to them or whether it's a hindrance to them. Not just in combat, but also all the time. I think it's cool. The dog better have plot armor. Oh, most definitely. That's true. The dog can't die. That's the rule. Retriever of arrows. I might have my party a bullet that acts like a giant dog now. Bonuses could be given to skill checks based on the PC's relationship with the dog. Yeah, that's cool too. It'd be a little more, I think, involved to set that kind of system up, but that would be cool. And again, another a good way to encourage RP, encourage engagement with the dog on the player's end. Because, dude, if I know I can get a bardic inspiration from just like hanging out and playing with the dog, yeah, I'm going to do that. That'll be a thing in the downtime. Make the dog the secret BBEG. Yeah, you can do that. That would be really cool. Cast mage armor. All right. So, you know, even if River isn't here, I am going to do this question. If he's not here this evening, then we can talk about it a little more next week if he wants to, as sort of a follow-up. But, oh, no, you know what? Fake out. We're not doing it, because it just occurred to me there is a follow-up still for us to do. So I am going to save it for you. And it also occurs to me, if River's listening to this podcast episode for the first time, he's probably freaked out like, no, you said you weren't going to do it. So everything's fine. We're not going to do it. We're going to do the follow-up, because I forgot about the follow-up. We're going to do the follow-up and talk about the follow-up, and then we're going to do some chat for a little bit. So that's okay. Thank you for the question, Nebraska. Thank you for your question, River. It'll be the next time that you're available. If you can do it next week, we'll do it next week. But for now, let's go to a follow-up. The follow-up we received was from Molly, which Molly sent us a question several episodes ago and is sending in a follow-up on it. So, Molly says, follow-up. I'm currently playing as a fighter. Back on episode 15, I asked about how to contribute to the party while not in combat. You said I should give them a character trait and take advantage of things like intimidation. The trait I decided on was that he is hyper-competitive. This opened tons of RP doors among the party. It also led to my newfound friendship with the bard. It's become quite the bad 90s movie buddy cop situation. Yeah, I was talking about that before. And the whole party has fun with it. Just wanted to thank you and chat for the advice and tell you to keep up the great work and good advice. Well, thank you. That's fantastic to hear. I'm glad to hear it. Yes, hyper-competitive. That's a cool one, right? Because that always is like, there's always something there. You just, so that you, and also, when the DM knows that, then the DM can plant seeds for that too. So it's more than just your player acts this way, and so as a result, the other players act a certain type of way, because that's true. But there's another relationship going on, which is your DM is making decisions about the world and the story based upon what they know of your characters. And now that your DM knows that one of your characters' defining character traits is being hyper-competitive, it's more likely that they're going to put your party in scenarios where that can be used. So, put you in a bar where somebody's having an arm wrestling contest. That's going to engage your character. And also, great to hear that you've befriended the bard, because, man, the buddy cop dynamic is all kinds of fun. I've done that both directions, small guy, big guy. It is always a really fun, cool, good time. I think we had a couple of episodes ago a question about like somebody that was doing acrobatic combat together with like a partner, having like a double. Those are my favorite kind of characters. I had kind of a little bit of thing going on there like that with Justin in the Star Wars campaign with Bravo, and I forget the name of his character, some lunatic Wookiee. Hyper-competitivity is awesome. Yes, for sure in the aspect of opening the door for other RP stuff. So that's way cool. Why is there always an archery or axe throwing competitions every time we head into town? Yeah, most definitely. And not even necessarily among others. It could also be within the party too. Just, something that immediately comes to mind is Legolas and Gimli. Yeah, with keeping track of their kills. That kind of stuff is always great. The whole like Goku Vegeta thing, where it's like we're on the same team, but like there's other stuff going on there too. So I'm glad to hear that. That's really cool. Backpack Ewok. Yeah. Bravo. Bravo was a monster. He had dual lightsabers. So that was pretty cool. Dual red lightsabers. Good RP is the best, indeed. And the more, I think, just in general across the board, the more character traits, whether they're good or bad, that your player has, or that your character rather has, then the more options the other players in your party have for bouncing off of you for RP, and the more options that your DM has in terms of knowing what they can do to set things up based on your character's personality. See, kids, that's why it's good to have a good backstory for your character. It's more than just about whether or not you're participating with the RP. I'm talking to all of you edgelords out there that are like worried about min-maxing and just like doing DPR. Your character's persona is also relevant to the story and relevant to the campaign, and ultimately could end up being relevant to your mechanics that you're so obsessed about. So anybody that's too worried about the mechanic stuff and not thinking about RP at all, This is a great example of how RP can pie eating contest. Oh, no, free pie. Yeah. Pie eating contest would be a great one. Just some guy who's just some person that is just obsessed with competition, competing. Otherwise, it's just math and dice. True. Mentioning dwarves and elves. Small goblin paladin and a medium Aarakocra druid monk bound. County fair encounter becomes more fun when folks keep trying to outdo each other. Pie eating and wrestling test your strength challenge and so on. Yeah, most definitely. Food eating contests. Cool. Well, thank you for the follow-up, Molly. And again, to reiterate, we're not going to be doing River's question this week because even though we only did 4 questions and a follow-up, we are approaching the end here. So this would be a great time to just do chat. So that's what we're going to do. And I might make this just sort of like a new segment towards the end. And we do it every week. I don't see why not. Not that I'm not speaking with chat throughout, but I just think it would be kind of cool to have a designated space of the pod where it's just, we just talk. So what was the question that I saw in here earlier? What was your question, Joshua, that I missed? Because I think I saw it, and then I think I saw that somebody pointed out that I didn't see it. Carlin was the best. Indeed. Let's see. Put it in there again. An update on the Choose Your Own Adventure shorts. Oh, yeah. I got to figure out how to do that. Advice to run a DMPC. Oh, just generally? What else do I play? Oh, I'm currently playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey. That's been fun. I play 2K. I don't play any other... I'm not a big, board game guy. I mean, I guess I am. I don't know. I like video games. Metagaming is a big deal. Yes, metagaming is a big thing to consider, but it also, I think it depends on what you want to accomplish with the DMPC. Let me ask you, did you elect to have this DMPC, or did they give it to you? Did your party give it to you? There has not been any movement as of that I know of getting a Mann Shorts Discord server, although I am giving consideration to doing a bardadvice podcast Discord. So we've got to get that set up. Any other TTRPGs? Not huge. I have in the past. I've definitely was a big fan of like D20 Modern, D20 Future. Sidewinder was one of the Western ones we played. The Star Wars RPG from like 2003. It's a very specific one. I've not played Cyberpunk. Maybe I did do a Cyberpunk one-shot once. Cthulhu's always fun. Yeah, Cthulhu's fun. Play Cthulhu. KOTOR. Oh, yeah. I wish they would remake that game. Have we already talked? Did they remake it? I don't know. I can't keep up anymore. Played Teenagers from Outer Space RPG. I have not. Although it sounds familiar. It feels like I've heard it before. One of my games is in 4 years running, but exclusively on Discord. Our DM can be sometimes slow to respond, which can really kill the mojo. Any thoughts? Huh. Well, what you could do is you could phrase it in such a way where... What do you mean they're sometimes slow to respond? Is the game, when you say it's exclusively on Discord, is it text? Are you playing via text? Because if that's the case, then it takes the DM a long time to respond. You could just mention to them like, hey, no, not to be mean, but sometimes you take a little too long to respond, and we're wondering if there's maybe anything that we could do to help that process. It could just be too long, like DM is typing and it's 6 minutes before the text is there, or too long, like, hey, we did this stuff, and then wait a minute, we haven't heard from somebody in 4 days. 4 days. Okay. So that's weird that I said that before you said it. But anyway, yeah, that's a lot. So what I would say is I would be like, hey, what's going on? Is there something going on in your personal life that is affecting your ability to respond? Or is it maybe that, I don't know. I would just ask what's going on. Without being rude about it, just like, hey, listen, like sometimes it takes several days to get a response back from you. We want to know if there's anything that we might be able to do to help mitigate that, to help contribute to, maybe it's somebody who has been, maybe they're getting tired of DMing. And so maybe you might offer that, like, hey, do you want to like maybe swap out DMs for a little bit? Maybe play something different. Maybe have somebody else in the group DM a different campaign, but you don't want to offend him because he's really good, but we want to play. Okay. Well, then I would say that to him. I would say, look, we really love the game. Like, we're not in any way complaining about the game, but sometimes it takes a really long time to get anything back. We would appreciate it if you might make an effort to lessen that, and we would be happy to do anything to contribute to that happening less. So I think that honesty for the most part is I'd say like 99.9% of the time, honesty is the best policy. So, and also, like, what you lead with the fact that you really like what's going on. That's always good too, to kind of like put in a complaint and a compliment at the same time so that it's easier on them. So it's not just like, what the hell, where you been? It's been 4 days. Start it with like, hey, listen, one of the reasons that we're troubled about this is because we really love the campaign. Like, we're really enjoying it, but also 4 days is kind of a bit excessive. And it could just be that like something's going on and it's like, oh yeah, sorry, like that time, something was going on that week and I didn't have internet or something, or I had stuff going on, and that's understandable. But if it's something that's continuing to recur, I would just bring it up and I would just give it to them with a compliment and a complaint, and just say like, we love the stuff, what you're doing, but 4 days, come on. That's a long time. Father was the magician in the circle. Mother was his assistant and a trapeze artist in a traveling circus. I was a trick shot artist. I joined the Pentacle Drift Punch Paranormal Detective Agency. Good thoughts, insight appreciated. We're all super invested in our characters and we all live in different states and I have kids. So I get it, but I like your approach. Yeah, of course. No worries. Yeah, I really believe that in general, people are just doing the best they can. So it's probably a thing too that he's not aware of, because if nobody's ever said anything, he doesn't know it's a problem, right? Like maybe for him, 4 days of a response is like good. Like maybe in his opinion, he's thinking like, oh man, I got that thing to them in 4 days. I'm not saying that's the case, but just opening the chain of communication is good. And it's always good to throw in a compliment with a complaint because, again, it just lessens the blow. It makes it feel like it lessens the chance he'll think it's like an attack. He'll be like, what is this? Oh, they love my stuff, but they need it sooner. I think it'll be a little easier that way. So let me see. I think I got caught up again and didn't fully finish answering the DMPC question. It depends on what you want to use them for. Did they give it to you? Did you answer me that? Did the party give you the DMPC, Joshua? I would say, oh yeah, this is Mustang peppercorn stuff. Okay, that makes sense. Pentagonal drift punch. Running a game with just the 3 of you. So it's you and 2 other players. And so you want to, run a DMPC? Yeah. Do whatever you want to do. It'll be a little more work for you in terms of keeping track of stuff, but I've done that. And I would say this, you are the DM first, I think, obviously, but like when it comes to your player, that's the real metagame challenge. Obviously, there's the regular metagame challenge of just like not allowing your DM knowledge to affect your player's decision making. But there's also the management of getting into an encounter and getting into combat and how you approach it. So it's almost just kind of like, one of the things that I've done when I do it is just, I don't know, you just kind of treat it like a Jekyll and Hyde situation where it's just like you have your DM hat on now, and then when it comes time for you to run the PC, you put on your player hat. So try and keep the DMPC and DM thoughts separate. Yeah, it's really difficult to do. But also, another thing that's helpful for me, at least, is like when you're switching onto that player hat, kind of like mentally reset the stage for yourself instead of just going right into like, okay, now this guy's going to do this. Give yourself kind of a minute mentally to be like, okay, and then kind of reassess from the point of view of the player. That general process of kind of stopping and like positioning your perspective, I think will help in that process of the metagaming. Because then at that point, it's like, you know, as the DM, you know what's going on from a bird's eye, but then when you get into that player, they only know what they see. So kind of, what do they call that? Like reorient yourself when doing that switch. It won't be a concern when you're going back into the DM, because that you don't have to worry about metagaming when you're the DM. It's only when you're like switching onto that player mode. So if you just kind of take a second to like, here we go, then I think that might help. And honestly, like, you know, unless the other players are going to like really dock you on it, like if the goal is to have fun, then it's okay if you mess up or like make a decision. You know, you can always mulligan, because again, you're the DM. So like even if you did something where it was like, oh man, I shouldn't have done that, you can always retcon whatever you need to as the DM. So alternatively, to help make up for a low PC count, you could look into options for making the couple of PCs you do have more powerful, like extra levels of or Gestalt build or extra homebrew abilities. Oh, that's a cool idea too, Flint suggested. Yeah, and honestly, I've played 2-man campaigns like that where we were just dummy. Like we were like, he let us Gestalt, and I think we were like level 11. We were fighting dragons and stuff, like just 2 of us. But it's, if you're doing a DMPC just because you want to, you know, play as part of the party, play them lazily and loosely guide them if they get stuck. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a thing that you worry so much about. So much as just kind of like reminding yourself that you're going back into that player mode and just straight up odd level OP. It's hard to DM and run a PC that's not a railroader. Oh, yeah. Be with them and enjoying the adventure. Yeah, I get that for sure. I think, too, that you might consider character traits of the DMPC that might help you in terms of the metagaming, like making them forgetful. That might be a little too on the nose, but you know what I mean. That's something else to think about. Like, if that's one of their character traits, then that can reconcile in your own head why they don't know what's going on. But a party can depend on the DMPC to get them out of situations. Yes, sometimes that's true. And sometimes it happens where, everybody in the party's down but the DMPC. So it's like, okay, now it's all on you. But I would say, too, that your contributions to the party... Well, no. Most unique character you ever came across? That's a good question. I don't know right offhand. I'd have to really think about that. It's probably a BBEG. A DMPC who's the BBEG in the end. Finding a reason for them to just be subordinate to the PC can help too. First adventure, they are the PCs. Their life, they work for the PCs in some capacity, etc. Oh, yeah, that's a good call. If you just want to kind of like join the adventure with them on a character, yeah, that's a great idea. Giving them a reason to be subordinate to the PCs, or like, I don't know if you've already done it or not, established all of that plot. My DMPCs tend to be supportive types for specific encounters, then I have them move on with their business once the plot no longer needs them to be around. Goodness gracious. Well, here we are at the end, folks. We're at like a minute. We're like an hour, 8 minutes. How did this happen? Hopefully I'll be able to get at least an hour out of this audio, because I'm sure there were lots of sitting around. And well, what's the reverse of a BBEG? A GEBB. Is that a trick question? Are there rules for sidekicks already? Oh, are there? Well, here we are again at the end, gang. Thank you so much for joining. That was fun, actually, the little chat at the end. I like that. That's cool. I think that'd be fun for people to kind of get maybe an opportunity to get their questions answered in more of a fluent format as opposed to sending in the questions. But hey, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't send in questions. In fact, what a fantastic segue to remind everybody to please send your questions to bardadvice@gmail.com. It also looks like bardadvice. You can get merch at manshorts.com. And if you want to contribute to my third album, Organized Lightning, that I am currently developing, you can do so directly via PayPal, Cash App, or Venmo at Yazik. Thank you again to all of the patrons, members, super chatters. Thank you all for liking, rating, commenting, subscribing, sharing. I'm having a lot of fun doing this podcast. Don't forget to like the video, everyone. Appreciate you coming in, stopping by. We will be here. I will be here next week. Same Bard time, same Bard channel, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, streaming on the Man Shorts YouTube channel. And the audio for this podcast will be available Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern. I hope that everybody has a fantastic weekend, and I look very much forward to seeing you all next week and hopefully answering River's question. Have a good one.